Hi everyone, Future Steph here, and I'm just going to preface this video with it's probably going to be a hot mess. I'll go into the intro in a minute, but I basically filmed this at 10:30 at night on the 14th. I was very tired when I filmed this reaction video, and I have come back 24 hours later and sort of just tried to, summarize my thoughts, but I'm still not all that coherent. But I hope you enjoy. People said that they wanted to see it. It's mostly me, very unfiltered and very tired. So good luck. Hi everyone, Steph here from the Novelty Corner. Welcome back to my channel. I know this is not the best quality because this is a totally random video that I decided to film at about 10:30 at night because the Goodreads Choice Awards, or the first round for voting, has gone up. And normally I don't react to these things, but I am kind of curious. And given that by tomorrow, by the time I actually get back onto checking things on YouTube, everyone will have done a reaction to this. I figured I'd just film it tonight before I go to bed. This is totally off the cuff and random for me, but we're going to go with it. Mostly I'm doing this because I'm curious, not because I have high expectations of what will be on this list. And really the only list that I'm invested in is the romance category, and I know I will be sorely disappointed. We'll just see how this goes. I will have a look at some of the other categories just because why not? Best Books of 2023, round one voting. So it is the 15th year. We might just go in order of the categories because why not? We'll just have a look at these ones for giggles because it's not like I'm going to have an actual opinion on any of them. So let's start with fiction. I have probably nothing on this list that I will have read. Let's see, we've got Yellowface by R.F. Kuang, which has been really popular. I know Alice Hoffman's name. Haven't read anything by her. What else is on here? I think I've seen the cover of Hello Beautiful, but I know nothing about the book. And Jojo Moyes is on here. Unsurprisingly, have not read anything on here, but let's face it, general fiction is not my cup of tea, nor is historical fiction. So let's just see if I recognize anything on this one. I have heard of The Covenant of Water. Someone was talking about it recently. Yeah. I know Isabella Linda's name. I feel like this is just very telling of my reading taste. Looking at all of these, I don't know, something that just struck me down here is these all have a very yellowish, warmish color palette. Some of these up here are a little bit cooler with the blue tones, but that last little row was very aesthetically pleasing just in terms of color choice. Okay, mystery thriller. Again, I dip into this every now and then, but I haven't really this year. I did hear someone talking about Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murders the other day. I think it was in someone's reading journal wrap-up. They really liked it, but that's the first I've heard of it. I have read Rachel Hawkins. No, have I read Rachel Hawkins before? Maybe not. Yeah. No, nothing on here. I know Riley Sager's name, but have not read any of their books. Okay. Hope no one was expecting, deep thoughts on any of those categories. But let's go into romance. And let's see. God. Okay. All right. Let's just go with this. Okay. Anna Huang, I've met Anna Huang. She is lovely, but I am no longer reading her books for particular reasons. But that does not surprise me that that's on there. That this is on here, yeah. Unsurprising. Liz Tom Ford's been everywhere. And yeah. Megan Quinn doesn't surprise me. You again, I have a feeling Robin may have talked about this one recently. It is a very fall cover. And given that I am in spring and not autumn, it's not the vibe I'm going for at the moment, but I am interested in that one. I read Icebreaker at the start of the year. I'm not all that interested in Wildfire. I didn't like Icebreaker enough to continue reading on in the series. One of my friends might be able to convince me. I have never heard of Meet Me at the Lake. Have not heard of that at all. Final Offer by Lauren Asher I do have to read because it's one of the series that I want to finish before the end of the year. So I will have an opinion of that by the end of December, but at the moment, The Dreamland Billionaire series has kind of been hit or miss. I really liked book 1, and I was not overly a fan of book 2, although I have read the first book in the spin-off series from this. So I have met the couple from Final Offer in Love Redesigned and have got a bit of a peek at that relationship. So just if you're planning on reading Love Redesigned and you haven't read Dreamland Billionaires, there is a crossover in that one. Sarah Adams rings a bell. Now, I have not read any Abby Jimenez yet, and this appears to be something that I need to rectify very quickly. And I do have plans to read an Abby Jimenez book in probably early next year. I may get to it this year or I may not, but it's not this one. If you've read it, let me know if I should read it. We're just going to skip over Ellie Hazelwood because we know I have not had any success with Ellie Hazelwood's book. So unfortunately, that is just a miss. I've never heard of Romantic Comedy, a novel by Curtis Sittenfeld. And I don't know whether I want to... Oh, let's hover over it. What does it say? See, anything that is really touted as a romantic comedy, I always get a little bit, I don't know, twitchy about. I did read The True Love Experiment by Christina Lauren. Why is it saying that I didn't? I did. Oh no, hang on. Maybe that's the one I didn't. I'm very confused. This is why I shouldn't film things at 10:30 at night. I will have to check that out. Anyway, I don't mind their books. I know what I'm going to get if I pick one of them up. Doesn't surprise me that Rebecca Yarros isn't on here, but she is on my list of authors that I really don't have an interest in reading, unfortunately. Unfortunately, or just... No, I don't know why I said unfortunately. She's just not an author that I plan on picking up. The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston, I really liked. That was really fun and really enjoyable. The Long Game by Elena Armas, I have also recently read. I also really enjoyed this one. Hello Stranger by Catherine Center, I haven't read yet, but I would like to at some point. I need to get to it. Happy Place by Emily Henry is very much an Emily Henry book. I don't know what else to say is about it. It'll probably end up in the top 10 anyway, because Emily Henry always does. It's not strictly a romance. There is romance in it, but if you're thinking about it compared to all of the other romances on here, it is probably not as much of a romance. Pucking Around being on this list, I want to say that it surprises me. I'm kind of glad that it is on here because I think a couple of years ago it wouldn't have been. Yeah, that's really fascinating to me. And I feel like I'm probably going to vote for that one just because it's the one that I've read the most this year because I've read it a few times. Powerless by Elsie Silver. It surprises me that this is the book from the series that's on this list because to me, this one felt the most inconsistent in pacing. I still enjoyed it, but yeah. So this one is a runaway bride and a hockey player. It's very much a slow meandering story and it takes a little while for them to figure themselves out. I will say that of all of the books on here, this is my favorite romance cover. It's one of my favorite romance covers in general, just because it still has people on the cover and it's just a gorgeous pose and I love the lighting on it. But anyway, and then there's Lucy Score and I am not at all interested in Lucy Score either. Like some of these don't surprise me that they're on there just by sheer volume of people who read Emily Henry because she's so heavily commercialized and she has won the category for the last couple of years, I think. Wouldn't surprise me at all if that did happen, but the 7-Year Slip and Pucking Around being on here make me really happy, to be honest. Romantasy, the genre that I hate the name of. But of course, why would we want to say fantasy romance? We just want to make everything short and quick. Again, this is why I don't film things really late at night. No shade to anyone who likes romantasy or fantasy romance books. Absolutely no shade. I do not like it. We know this. Yeah, none of these are a surprise. And of course, there's Fourth Wing. I find this so funny that Assistant to the Villain is on there because I know so many people have not enjoyed it. I've heard a few people talking about the Hurricane Wars, or at least talking about planning on reading it. So I'm kind of curious to know what people's thoughts are on that. Zodiac Academy, let's not even go there. Yeah, I know basically nothing about any of these books because this is not my genre. Fantasy is probably even less so. I am curious about Atalanta. I do like my Greek myth retellings. I won't lie, I do enjoy those, but I don't pick them up as often anymore. I am intrigued by this one, Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. Someone was talking about this. I can't remember who it was. Anyway, that's a gorgeous cover. Starling House. I actually like Alex E. Harrow, but I've not heard the best things about Starling House, which is a little bit disappointing, so I probably won't pick that up. The Unmaking of June Farrow I've heard of. I have not read The Fragile Threads of Power by V.E. Schwab. I have a feeling I would need to go back and read the Shades of Magic series, and I'm not really in the mood to do that at the minute. Of course, you've got Cassandra Clare on here, Mark Lawrence. Ooh, this looks like a Medusa story. Ooh. I might have to come back to that one at some point. Unsurprising that Leigh Bardugo is on here. Martha Wells. Now, Witch King, I do need to read. That one I have not read yet, and I need to read it. And then Bookshops and Bone Dust as well. Okay, sci-fi. I'm still very out of touch with sci-fi. Let's see. I do have The Deep Sky to read. I'm looking forward to reading this when I get to it. I have started Villain. I know I will enjoy it because it's John Scalzi, and I have enjoyed everything I've read by John Scalzi because his humour just appeals to me. I just haven't got to it yet. I have read In the Lives of Puppets. I'm doing much better on this one. System Collapse. Yes. Oh, no. I've not read System Collapse. Why haven't I read that yet? I thought I had that pre-ordered. Okay, I'm behind, but I will read that at some point. Yeah, Justin Cronin's new one's on here. That doesn't surprise me. And the rest I'm not sure about. Okay, I knew more on that list than I thought I did. Pierce Brown's also on there, so I would imagine that would end up in the top 10. Okay, horror. Not a category that I would say I know very much about, although I have read a few things this year, but looking at this list, yeah, I don't know any of these books. I know the authors, Stephen King, Grady Hendrix, Stephen Graham Jones, all those are unsurprising. Young adult fantasy. All right. I've seen the cover for Song of Silver Flame Like Night. Don't know anything about it. Do like the cover for Spice Road. But again, it's fantasy and it's YA, which means I will probably not come back to it. Holly Black's on here, so she'll end up in the top 10. Blood Debts I have seen the cover of. Stephanie Garber's on here. I have to read this series next year. I won't get to it before the end of the year. Ooh, I do like that cover. Okay. Young adult fiction. Okay, so who have we got on here? Some authors I've not heard of. Sophie Gonzalez I have heard of. Karen McManus I've heard of. Maureen Johnson, the author who I will not read. Catherine McGee I've heard of. Jennifer Lynn Barnes. But have I read any of these authors? I've read Becky Albertalli before. I've read Talia Hibbert. I'm just not interested in reading Talia Hibbert's YA book. I know that I probably should because I enjoy her books, but I just don't typically lean towards young adult anymore, especially if it's not Australian young adult. All right, debut novel. Will there be anyone in here that I have read? Probably not. Some of these have really nice covers. I like Banyan Moon. Love the cover. Wayward has a beautiful cover. Shark Heart. Yeah. Epic Tale of Marriage, Motherhood, and Enduring Love. Yeah, I might skip that one. The Bandit Queens. That has a cool cover. Highly unlikely I'll have read anything from the nonfiction category. How far the light reaches. What's this one? That kind of sounds interesting. Butts a Backstory. That's a great title. Roxanne Gay's on there. Again, books I've never heard of. Memoir and autobiography. Okay, I think we can probably pick who's going to be in the top 10. And I've not read any of these and probably will not be reading them. Spare will be on there, even though it has not got good reviews from people that I know. I suspect that will just get voted because people will pick something that they know. Britney Spears will be in the top 10. Page Boy should be in the top 10. I would hope Pamela Anderson's book ends up in the top 10. Yeah, memoir and autobiographies. Not specific. I do have a few to read on my TBR, but I don't necessarily gravitate towards them in general. History and biography. Again, not a category that I pick up often. And humour. This will not be a category that I know very much about at all. Yep, I've got nothing. I'm not even going to comment on them because I know nothing. No, I haven't rewatched the footage of me talking about the Goodreads Choice Awards last night, but I figured I would come back because I've had 24 hours to kind of let it simmer and sort of think about it. And there's been a whole lot of posting and stuff that's gone on, and my video is not going to be going up until the Friday of this week. So it's going to be a few days after everything has gone live. Like, it's really interesting because I don't think anyone expects the Goodreads Choice Awards to be doing amazing things. It's based on what people feed the algorithm on Goodreads, right? And like, the only category that I have any authority to speak on is the romance category. And even then, I've barely read any of the books. Like, there's 20 books on there and I've read 6 of them. And yes, I have read The True Love Experiment. I was wondering why it didn't come up that I'd read it, but I clearly have. So, I mean, we were not expecting an overwhelming number of authors of colour on here, which is hugely disappointing, but is not unsurprising in terms of what we know about the Goodreads Choice Awards, right? And that comes down to us being more conscious and really, that we're making choices when we are choosing to read authors of colour and authors from diverse backgrounds or backgrounds other than our own experiences, right? So if we're not marking those and really uplifting those voices, then obviously they're not going to come through on something like this, because this is a market that is, very much not just social media book people. And I think that's another really good point to make, is that, BookTube and Instagram and TikTok and whatever, that's a large portion of readers, but they're not the only people who use Goodreads, right? So the sphere of influence there is really interesting. And I think, TikTok has had a significant influence on particularly the romance category and the romantasy category and a few other places, right? So it's pretty easy to pick what's going to be in the next round. So Emily Henry will win because she's won every other time her books have been in here. And that's because her books have a much broader appeal than some of the other ones, because they're not just appealing to people who have really good TikTok marketing skills. They're actually appealing to a very big, broad, general audience. Then you'll probably have other books that come as runners-up because they do have that TikTok influence, like Ellie Hazelwood and whatnot. Am I putting much stock in this? No, but I was never putting much stock into the Goodreads Choice Awards anyway. There are 2 authors of colour in here, Anna Huang and also Lauren Asher, and it's disappointing that they're the only 2 authors of colour because there are so many phenomenal authors of colour. But the other thing that is really clearly evident here is this list is very North American, and it's also very Northern Hemisphere dominated. So you're not going to get a vast range of experiences when that's the case. And I think I said last night, there are a couple of other books in this top 20 that I might read. I have Hello Stranger by Catherine Center, so I will read that. I will probably I will be reading Final Offer by Lauren Asher because that's just part of my end of year reading stuff. And then if I get a chance, I will try and pick up Abby Jimenez's book and also maybe Kate Goldbeck's book. They're the only other ones that are of any interest to me. And I was right in that romantic comedy is not a romance book because of course it was never going to be. It's got romantic comedy in the title. Why would it be an actual romance? Am I surprised by any of this? No, I'm not surprised by any of this at all, because this is kind of the space that we're working in. And Goodreads is inherently flawed. We know this. Why do I still use Goodreads? Because it's what this links to, and I need that because it transfers some of my data without me having to do all the work manually, and it makes my life easier. And when I find a service that actually does integrate this better, then maybe I will switch to it. And also, don't come at me about Storygraph in the comments because I've got issues with Storygraph, and that's a story for another time. But in the meantime, I will keep my own records. Flawed system. 100% flawed. I know this. Most of us know this. So that's kind of my reaction to the Goodreads Choice Awards. I'm disappointed that there are no kids categories on here, but also in some ways I'm kind of relieved because adults are not the intended audience for kids books. And although we can read and review them, and in other awards, it is adults judging these books based on what they deem to be the merits of a good kids book, but we are not the intended target, ever. So it would be nice to see them on there, but I would have the same complaints about it in that they're all going to be heavily Northern Hemisphere, North American centric anyway. So to me, that category is great, but also not hugely relevant to my reading experience. Am I disappointed or disillusioned or anything? No, not really, because I didn't have great expectations going into it in the first place. And I think that's just where I sit with the Goodreads Choice Awards. But apparently people wanted to see this video, so you are going to get it. And I know it's me being fairly cynical. I did vote for Pucking Around because, you know what, it is queer AF and it's on the list. If I'm going to pick something that I've read that is diverse in some way, it's going to be the queer book, because my other options were not fantastic. And I actually enjoyed Pucking Around. So that's the only reason I need to vote for it. In the comments, I'd love to know your thoughts on the Goodreads Choice Awards or any of the categories, or if, I mean, there are so many books that didn't get added to any of these lists that should have been on there. So I'm not even going to really open up that category. But if there is something on the list that you're happy that's on there, I would love to know what it is, because, you know, let's have some positivity in here. There are a couple of good books in there, which gives me hope. But, you know, if we want to make a difference in the future, it has to come up to us, those people who are talking about books and who are reading books and who are documenting that we are reading them and uplifting BIPOC author voices. Like that just comes down to us. So onwards and upwards, and, you know, let's just continue to read diversely. That's all we can do. This is probably going to be a hot mess of a video. So thank you very much for watching. If you don't want to leave a comment, but you want to let me know that you're here, just leave a computer emoji. And I hope that you guys are staying safe and healthy, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye, everyone.